Hello friends, this is a video reply to a post by Ali Antrazi in the Blue White X competitive Facebook group. If you're not a member, I highly suggest that you request to be so. I will put a link in the short description, and then you can go check out that post by Ali Antrazi. I don't think that you need to in order for this video to make sense, but I'd recommend it. Okay, so I've seen this discussion taking place, and because I've played the deck a few times now, I really wanted to weigh in, but I just don't like writing. I'm more of a video guy. So I'm going to give you my major points. And then if you want to hear a little bit more detailed about cards, watch the rest of the video. Okay, so my major thing that I want to say, which might be controversial to some and some might not agree with it, but I think Ali Antrazi did a fantastic job iterating on the Jeskai Draw Go archetype. And I think that this is the future of Jeskai Draw Go. And if you're doing something different, you're probably doing something wrong. And let me explain exactly why. There's 3 or 4 cards that shape that opinion for me. The first being Search for Escanta. If you're playing Search for Escanta, that means you don't need to play Sphinx's Revelation. In fact, Search for Escanta is just better than Sphinx's Revelation. The reason is Sphinx's Revelation is one of your payoff cards for making the game go long. Search for Escanta is one of your payoff cards for making the game go long, but Search for Escanta is also better in the early to mid parts of the game than Sphinx's Revelation is. Sphinx's Revelation for 5 mana only draws 2 cards. Glimmer of Genius for 4 mana scries 2 and draws 2. So Search for Escanta, you don't need Sphinx's Revelation if you're playing Search for Escanta, and I think that Search is just better. Okay, the next card, Glimmer of Genius. This card has been absolutely amazing. Yes, it's expensive, but by the time you get here, you're probably just hoping to hold up Cryptic Command, and the deck has always kind of had this awkwardness in which if you're holding up Cryptic Command but you don't have to use it, you don't have anything proactive to do, Glimmer of Genius completely changes that. Having both these cards alongside each other make each of them better. If you don't have to Cryptic Command and then you're glimmering instead, that's exactly what Jeskai Draw Go wants to do. You want card selection, you want card advantage, and you want it at instant speed. And with so many different powerful cards, so many just awesome cards in a deck like Jeskai Draw Go, Glimmer of Genius is just absolutely fantastic. Also, Torrential Gearhulk. This card plays very well with Glimmer of Genius, very well with Cryptic Command, and very well with most of the cards in your deck. The other thing is, by the time you're at this stage of the game, you're probably looking to snap Cryptic anyway. But now you're just doing it with a 5/6 body. So it makes the deck better at being a sort of go over the top of you big blue control deck. It kind of struggled to do that before. Like I said, you had the payoff cards like Sphinxes and Secure the Wastes, but now you have a 5/6 body. For 6 mana, if you're going to snap Cryptic Command, why not pay 6 mana and Torrential Gearhulk Cryptic Command, and then like also you can block Reality Smashers, Thought Knot Seers, Tarmogoyfs, and then also just kill your opponent. So I think Torrential Gearhulk is an absolutely amazing inclusion in this deck. Also, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, the one other card I want to mention in my short points, Nahiri the Harbinger. Guys, for you Ajani fans, I'm sorry. She's just better. Period. I'll talk more about that in just a moment, but she's just better than Ajani Vengeance. Okay, so that's the short stuff. If you want to watch more of the long stuff, let's do it. Okay, so how did this deck change for me and why? When I saw Ali first post the list, I was a little skeptical that he didn't include Serum Visions. I feel like not running Serum Visions in blue control decks is like the old way of thinking. The thought is, oh, I'll just naturally hit my land drops, and you know, I don't need Serum Visions, and I don't want to spend my mana on Serum Visions. I want to draw real cards and not Serum Visions. But the reality is, Serum Visions is just really good. And this isn't a video about Serum Visions, but what it does for the deck is just It has an interesting play with Mana Leak, with your 2 mana counters and your Search for Escanta, which I'll explain in just a moment. But it helps you make sure that you draw the cards that you want, and it helps you make sure that you don't draw the cards you don't want. And for 1 mana, the Library Manipulation and the Cantrip is too good not to run it. Okay, so how does it interact with Mana Leak, and are there too many counters in your search for Escantas? So this problem I ran into a lot. You will sometimes have these 2 mana hands, or sometimes it even happens at 3 mana, but like 2 mana hands basically in which you want to hold up your counter spell, but you also need to play your search for Escanta to enable you to hit your land drops. So those two things are really at odds with one another. On one hand, you might get lucky and draw the land, but if you hold up your 2 mana counter and then you don't draw the land, and things just start getting really awkward for you really quickly. So then you want to play your search for Escanta so that it can help you hit your land drops, but then you don't have your 2 mana counter up. The way search for Serum Visions makes that better is because you play Serum Visions on turn 1, you cantrip, and then you scry your lands or whatever it is you need to make sure that you hit. And then when you untap with Mana Leak, you can kind of rest assured, or Logic Knot or whatever it is, you can rest assured that you're going to make your land drops, and you don't have to feel pressured to play the search for Escanta to help you hit your land drops before you're ready. So I knew I wanted Serum Visions, and it made it wasn't really not difficult at all to find the room. So now that I've realized that, okay, there's an odd relationship with search for Escanta and your 2 mana counters, we're not going, and I'm going to be adding Serum Visions to the deck. I'm not going to be leaning on search for Escanta to help me hit my land drops as much. I don't need to play it as early as such. So I'm going to cut one of the search for Escantas to add a Serum Visions in. That also reduces the tenuous relationship between the 2 mana counter and the search for Escantas. Also, what I realized in the 2 mana counter spot is that 3 Logic Knots is probably a bit much, because if you're delving away your graveyard, you're not flipping your searches, and that came up a lot. So I decided to go ahead and cut 1 Logic Knot. I thought about the 3rd Mana Leak, but I'm looking also for the Serum Visions room. So 1 Logic Knot, 1 search became 2 Serum Visions. The other way I made room for a 3rd Serum Visions is I kind of felt like 3 Supreme Verdicts might be too much, especially like if Tron's on the rise, do you really need 3 Verdicts main? So I put one of them in the sideboard. That made room for another Serum Visions. And the 4 Serum Visions came because I realized, as cute and fun as I think Twice is, you don't need it if you're running Serum Visions, and you especially don't need it if you're running Glimmer of Genius. So cut the Think Twice, made that a Serum Visions. Okay, now I got my 4 Serum Visions. Great. The other card that I wanted was the 2nd Snapcaster Mage. And the reason is I felt like you need the extra snap to help you survive the early and mid game so that you can get to your Cryptic Command spot. Because sometimes you need to bolt a creature, and then on turn 3 you need to snap bolt a creature. Sometimes on turn 2 you need to Mana Leak something, and then sometimes on turn 4 you want to like snap Mana Leak. Sometimes you want to snap Serum Visions. It just made more sense to it makes sense to have the 2nd Snapcaster Mage for those reasons. Now I saw in the list that he posted, Ali was running 3 Lightning Helix and 2 bolts. I had actually gone the other way, and the reason is I felt like if I was adding another Snapcaster Mage, I wanted more efficient cards. So I think the 3rd bolt is probably better than the 3rd Helix. Now I guess the 3rd Helix makes you a little bit better against burn, but my thinking was, you can bolt on turn 1, you can snap bolt on 3, and on turn 4 you can bolt, snap, bolt, and you can't do any of those things with Lightning Helix and Snapcaster Mage. So I wanted more bolts for the snap, basically. Left the Electrolyzes alone. I've already talked about these cards and how awesome they are, so I left them alone. Talked about why the Supreme Verdict became 2 instead of 3. Alright, I said I would talk more about this. Nahiri the Harbinger is just better than Ajani Vengeance in this deck, and I think just in general. His -2 Lightning Helix is probably the worst it's ever been. There are Death Shadows, there are Tarmogoyfs, there are Reality Smashers, there are Thought Knot Seers. Yeah, I guess his minus is probably okay in the Humans matchup, but for the most part, I think Nahiri the Harbinger is just a much more powerful Planeswalker. She's much more resilient than Ajani Vengeance. She immediately goes to 6. Ajani's ultimate might be better, but it takes him forever to get there, and he's not as good at protecting himself. And his plus, I think her plus is just better, not only because it's a +2 instead of a +1, but I would rather filter my card draws than just tap a random thing, especially since she can come down and just actually exile that random thing. Also, I can't remember if I said this in the beginning, but you don't realize how good, I think I did, but basically getting Torrential Gearhulk with Nahiri is absolutely awesome, and you're totally fine that it goes back to your hand. The synergy here is great. As far as the sideboard, I don't remember exactly what Ollie was running. I brought in a Runed Halo because I started running one in my Jeskai Geist list because, again, like the rise of Tron and Valakut. Valakut was really popular a while back, and I was running Runed Halo. Now that it's popular again, or it's coming back up, I want Runed Halo back. And also, every time this card makes it back in, I'm thinking, this card's really versatile. I should just always run. But then it always gets cut out of my deck. I don't know why. I'm going to try to keep it around, though, because I think the card is great. What I did, that is one thing I noticed that is different from Ali. He had 2 Vendilion Clicks in the sideboard. I brought in 2 Spell Queller. The reason was I said that I had lost 2 games to Storm, and I think Spell Queller is just, I actually think it might just be a better card than Vendilion Click. And I guess that could be meta dependent. But one way I really like to beat up on Storm in the Jeskai Tempo lists is like you bolt their first creature, and then when they try to play the second creature, you get to Spell Queller it. So now you've eaten up their turn, you're beginning to apply pressure, and they still need to probably get a mana enabler down on the battlefield before they can go off. So I think Spell Queller is really good at that. Spell Queller also interacts with Kiss Ungiven. Spell Queller also interacts with Past in Flames, and it exiles instead of putting them to the graveyard, which is really good. Spell Queller also is good in a lot of other places. It interacts with Cavern of Souls. It can block a lot of things against Affinity. It interacts with Collected Companies. I just think it's a really good card. I think it's better at more things. I think it's better against more stuff in Modern than Vendilion Click is. And so I brought it in to kind of help me with the Storm matchup, but also I just brought it because I felt like it's a pretty versatile sideboard card. I'm not going to talk about all the rest of the sideboard stuff. I think a lot of it's pretty apparent. I think Ali's running 2 Celestial Purges. I was running just 1. I generally always run 1, but I was running 2 Disdainful Stroke, whereas I think he's running 1 Disdainful Stroke because I was more worried about the big mana decks. Okay, yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. I think this is the future of Jeskai Draw Go. I think the deck is super fun, and it is just much more powerful than the Jeskai Draw Go decks of the past. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.